You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that had, has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoy the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health Podcast. I have Santiago Villamil. He's an elite and certified strength and conditioning specialist with years of experience in orthopedic and sports rehab, sports performance, and with the fitness industry in general. He graduated from University of Florida with a master's in physical therapy and a bachelor's in exercise physiology, minor in nutrition. And his mission is to empower individuals to take charge of their health and inspire the athlete in everyone, which is a pretty cool mission. So, yeah. Santiago, thanks for coming.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, in inspiring the athlete and everybody, what do you have? Some people that are, let's say, older or in really, really poor condition that look at you with an upturned eyebrow when you say that?
For the most part. Well, I'm a strength coach for about over 20 years, but I've been a physical therapist for about 16. So that's where it kind of comes from. I kind of bridge the gap between rehabilitation and getting you out of pain to getting you back to doing the things that you love. And that's basically where that comes from. A lot of people in the health, especially in the healthcare field, they're told all the time that they can't by doctors, by all these different people. Don't do this, don't do that again. Oh, you'll never run again. It's bad for your knees. You name it. I hear it all. So that's my mission, to inspire the athlete and everybody again, so they can believe in themselves and trust their bodies and regain strength and have a long functional life. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Do you think that anyone is too far gone, or even people that are like just really, really, and they can't walk straight, they're in wheelchairs, they're just, a mess, they're older, maybe they're 70. Do you think that even those kind of people can significantly improve their health and their mobility?
I think anybody that has the right mindset can accomplish anything that they want, So, as a strength coach, it used to be all about performance and regaining strength and power and agility and things like that. As a physical therapist, you have to think and figure out, how do I get this person that was walking yesterday and all of a sudden they're a quadriplegic, and how do they function in life? So in my career, it's really all mindset, and you can have the severely injured person that ends up believing that they can accomplish a triathlon, for example, and then they accomplish it. Or some of our wounded warriors that get body parts that get blown up, but they still accomplish amazing feats because their mindset is different than, let's say, the person that doesn't believe that they're going to get any better. Then basically that's what they get. They lose function, they get weaker, they get on medications, and then that's it. And then it's the beginning of the end, basically, right? They don't have a very, let's just say, fulfilling quality of life because they don't believe in themselves. So to me, the human body is amazing. And as long as you treat it and challenge it a little bit and stress it enough, it'll adapt, and it'll adapt to whatever condition you put it, you put towards it. So that's what's beautiful about our body, that we think that we're this person that we see in the mirror, but really we're just a blob of cells, man, just walking around. Just an ecosystem that just requires the right amount of environment and stimulus to adapt to something, And if like the saying goes, if you lose it, if you don't use it, you lose it. But if you do something, then your body will respond accordingly.
So what do you believe is there a single most important aspect of someone regaining their health or maintaining their health? Like I remember Pavel Tsatsouline, he's big into the kettlebells, the Russian kettlebells. It was like strength. Without strength, there's nothing.
Right.
Do you have something like that, or what's the pyramid, or what's the base of good health or improving your health? What are the elements or element?
For me, when it comes to health, is the right dosage of many things, right? So it's not a very specific diet. It's whatever works for your body. Or when it comes to strength, yes, you need a certain amount of strength, but for what? If you're going to be a power lifter, yeah, you're going to need to work on powerlifting strength. But if you just want to be able to go out with your friends and dance at an old age, then that's totally different. So it's all about specificity of training per se, and providing the proper dosage of exercise or nutrition or whatever to live the life that you want to live. And you can change at any time. That's what's awesome about being a human. If you decide that you want to become a runner, well, you just need to train yourself to become a runner, and you can become one. Or if you want to go into do more CrossFit or strength and conditioning, then you can also do that. But you just need to allow the body to adapt and not think that it's going to happen overnight. So it's all about consistency and tissue adaptation. That's something that I teach a lot of my athletes and a lot of my clients, because they think that they're supposed to just get it overnight, and the harder they push, the better. But ultimately, you end up irritating a tissue, or you end up with an injury if you don't do it properly. So really, it's all about the proper amount for whatever it is that you want to accomplish, and allowing your body to adapt.
So what kind of people do you work with? Do you work more with athletes, or has that changed and now you work with a different segment of the population?
Yeah, it's actually changed several. Yeah, so I work with athletes, runners, and now I'm getting a lot of people, especially women with autoimmune issues and people that are in chronic pain. Because ever since I started my career as a physical therapist, from the beginning, probably a year out, I wasn't getting the results that I was expecting, or that my patients were expecting. So I started looking at things outside the box, and I basically just jumped into a rabbit hole of let's just say non-evidence-based practice, as most people will see it, because it's not in a journal. And it was all driven by results. And in the sports industry, we're more concerned with the performance aspect and the recovery and quick recovery. So sometimes you don't have time to, let's say, read all sorts of journal articles. It's just, you just go with things that work and get the athletes the results. So I started transitioning that over to just my general orthopedic people. And eventually led me to these little discs that Dr. Hoff invented, and they've been out for about 4 years now. And it's like frequency medicine. And to me, it's the future of medicine, because it's how our nervous system actually functions and how it works. So I've gone from like helping optimize athletes to treating females that have autoimmune issues, or kids with autoimmune issues that nobody seems to be able to help unless it's for medicines. And it's just, it's been pretty amazing, or people with Parkinson's who were told they were stuck with Parkinson's forever. And just the other day, I had one of my clients tell me, she was like, I feel like a real person, Yeah, I think we almost busted out crying, just because it was a simple little statement like that, but it's just amazing to be able to help people in that way. So right now I help anybody really cool. Right now I just help anybody that comes through my doors or gets referred, or anything like that. So my scope is pretty broad right now because of going outside the box earlier in my career.
So what are some of the important elements of, let's say you haven't worked out in a while, years, maybe even decades, and you want to get started again. It seems like a lot of people get started way too hard, way too fast, and then they hurt themselves and they just say, forget it, or it's too hard and they give up. What are some of your first recommendations or things you do with, let's say, again, you have a woman that maybe it's been a while and she's not feeling well, and how do you start her off?
We a lot of education. So at first it's just mindset, belief in themselves. When people are in an emotional state that they're not thinking clearly, or there's no belief, then it's difficult for them to even see the end goal. So at first we just start with really simple tasks, like getting up at a good time and drinking water, and then just going for a simple little pain-free walk, getting some sunshine in the morning, just sun gaze, doing things like being grateful every morning and saying things you're grateful for. So just shifting the mind allows them to start believing that they can accomplish anything. So then comes, like, let's say the interview. If somebody says, okay, I want to be able to do a 5K. So a lot of people are like, okay, let's do the couch potato to 5K in, 8 to 12 weeks. I'm more like, let's look at next year, because I want to make, especially if they have not been doing anything, like you said, and they've let themselves go. We really just start with very simple tasks, such as walking, or more being consistent with, let's say if they work at a desk, get up from your desk every 20 minutes. If you're watching TV during commercial breaks, give me 20 squats or 20 sit-to-stands, I call them, because they just do them, they think of them a little bit differently. And then one, like you mentioned, Pavel, sometimes that something that I'm really big on is telling people that eventually they need to be able to get up from the floor efficiently and smoothly like a ninja, right? So that's the ultimate goal, with not any effort, without any grunting. So, I don't follow very specific principles, because to me, every human is completely different. Their movement background is different. Their nutrition's background is different. The way they perceive movement is different. So everybody's very individualized. So it's very difficult for me to kind of say these are my parameters, or just because I treat everybody individually. And that's why I get good results, because it's the ability to listen to the person and really hear them out and where they want to go with their health or their fitness, and giving them not what I think they need, but giving them what they believe they're going to be able to get. So it's like giving them the promise.
Sure.
Yeah. Instead of focusing so much on process, I keep them focused more on like the promise of, and they'll get there. Then they don't mind that. They stop comparing themselves to the CrossFitter but he just did 220 pounds, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. That's not you. You know what I mean? They've been doing that for 20 years. We just started. And let's just say they've never even played a sport, so it's a totally different body. So that's the important thing, is seeking somebody out, like understanding that it's not, fitness isn't just go ahead and go, like you said, and go hard. It's finding somebody that will take the time to see where you're at and prep your body accordingly, so it can adapt without the fear of injury or irritating. Because a lot of people lose interest in fitness, one, because they try to do something that a friend told them to do, but they really don't like it, so they're not going to be compliant. Or they do too much too soon, and then something hurts, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is hurting me, I'm not going to do it again. So then they go back to being unfit. So it's finding something simple at first. I follow the KISS principle: keep it simple, Santi. If it's a senior, I'll say keep it simple, senior.
Right, I gotcha. What is there any guideline for someone's age, therefore it'll take this amount of time to get to a state where they can be functional? Or if someone hasn't worked out for 5 years on average, how long will it take them to get to a good state again? Like, is there any rules of thumb on how long it takes?
What I usually go by is how they tell me they're feeling after we do certain things. So if they're like, oh, I had a lot of pain, we go into like, well, what type of pain? Because sometimes they've been in pain for a long time. Let's say it's somebody that gets in for chronic pain, and all they know is pain, or like somebody with fibromyalgia. So they have a different perception of pain. So as we get into movement, then it's more of like, okay, what kind of pain is it? Like muscle soreness? Because they might not know that to them, any sensation to them is just pain, and it's not good for them. But then we just break down what pain is really telling them. And then once they have an understanding, then they're fine, because then they understand, okay, after you did your exercise or after you did your walking or whatever, I'm experiencing muscle soreness, and that's totally fine, right? Or if it's more of a stiffness than in their joint, so now they'll say, well, maybe you lifted too much, so maybe we need to back off. So it's really more of, I go with pain and how they're feeling. And then also when doing the workout together, I'm very particular in how their movement. So I have a keen eye in whether they're moving efficiently or they're compensating in some way. So I just back it off in some way, whether it's weight wise or whether it's, if we're doing squats, how high they're getting the butt down, or if it's a pace with the runner. We just kind of move around those little parameters so that way they feel good during the movement instead of feeling like they're being strained, especially in the beginning. Once let's say 6 to 8 weeks is usually how long it takes the body to adapt to like a new regimen of fitness or health, then at that point you can start pushing it a little bit more. But the guidelines are still the same. Is it muscle soreness, or is it something's not right, or the physical therapist or the strength coach or whoever has to have a keen eye in how their movement is, and whether it's a strained and compensated movement or something that just flows. Whenever you watch any professional athletes or anything like that, you see them move and they just flow, right? Like, how the heck did they do that? Doesn't mean that the amateur can't do it, but they will be able to if they slowly, progress themselves.
Well, even within professional athletes, I mean, what people don't see, and what I think happens is a lot of them like destroy their bodies.
Absolutely.
Performing at that level, and no one sees them broken and in pain themselves years later.
Exactly.
And so I think it gives people a really unrealistic idea of what's possible.
Absolutely. And a lot of people compare themselves to that. They see something and they're like, oh, I want to be able to do that. And then they go balls to the wall, they just go hard. And it's like, man, those guys, they had a gymnastics background and then they joined CrossFit, so they can do all these things much more fluid than you, who maybe never worked out and, your sport was like, let's say, band practice, like that's the way you moved your body. You never really played a sport. But then you're in your 30s and your 40s and you're like, man, I'm getting fat. I don't look how I'm looking. Let me get fit. And then they start, joining all these different gyms, or they go too hard. They'll look something up and they're like, I'm going to go with this. And at first it might feel good. But again, what I notice is that I get a lot of people coming in 6 to 8 weeks within their program, when you should be ramping up strength or pace or whatever it is, you're going to be increasing, because they started so fast, the body was adapting. Eventually it just ran out of way to compensate. And then that's when you start feeling the hip or the knee or the neck pain, so that's what people don't recognize, that they need to start with, I guess the boring stuff in the beginning, but there's ways to make it challenging. You just have to think as a professional on how to make it fun, how to make it task oriented, and think who you have in front of you rather than just looking at the program. So that I think a lot of people focus too much on the piece of paper, on the programming aspect of it, and trying to fit the person to their program rather than creating a program for the person as they go. Because sometimes stress can affect the way you move. You had an amazing workout the week before, then you got into a fight with your wife, and then you had a hard work week, and then you didn't eat right, and then you drank with your friends because you were traveling, then you got back and then you started to work out. Well, at that point your body has been under stress and you're trying to hit it hard again. Well, the tissue is going to be like, well, I'm not ready for this. You don't have the proper energy systems and things like that, and then the tissue breaks down. But you might not feel it right then and there, but that's where something began that you might feel 4 weeks later, right? As a little ache or sharp pain in your knee or something like that. Right, so there's a lot of factors that people have to take into consideration.
Well, one important question I have is, and this is also for me too, how do you find not just your run-of-the-mill personal trainer that's like sitting there texting while you're doing their standard workout, and they're thinking like, oh, if my client's not sore, they're not going to want to use me again, and how do you find someone really good? How do you find your trainer? I mean, what do they even call? Do they call the personal trainer? How do you find someone that knows about working out, and they know about personalization, and they care, and they know about the physical therapy aspect of it, and they care about your pain, and they're not just like some schlep that does like a standard program,
Exactly. The key with that is, with anything, not just personal training or a physical therapist or a strength coach or a doctor, or like whenever I speak with any of my clients, they're paying the money. And yes, you might be thinking of that person as an expert that's going to help you, but you need to feel that they're listening to you. You need to have this gut feeling of like, they have the best interest, my best interest, not just, oh, how many sessions? There's a lot of times they're just trying to sell you on their sessions or sell you on their plan of care or sell you on all these things, on the testosterone injections, or they're trying to sell you on all these different things. Anything that promises quick fix, that's where that's the number one red flag. When somebody's like, all right, in 6-week program, you're going to lose this weight and you're going to get this much strength. You may, but it might not be the healthiest way, so it will be results driven, not longevity, right? Or resilient body driven. You might get a result short term, but then later on, you're not where you needed to be because all you did was just stress your body to get a result. So whenever you seek somebody out there, just make sure that you interview them, see what their philosophy is. Don't just sit there and listen to what they're telling you. They need to be doing a lot more of the listening. And that's, to me, is going to be the proper, either healthcare professional or proper trainer, somebody that's going to be more in tune with best interest for your health, right? Somebody that's truly listening rather than somebody that's just moving their mouth about how good they are or how many credentials they have or, everything like that, and if you just take that as a red flag, somebody that's not letting you talk or not listening to what you're trying to tell them, then move on from that person, because there are people out there that are willing to listen and take the time and do a program specifically for you, rather than the cookie cutter, quick loss program, or strength gains program. That's biggest.
Are there certifications that would give you an idea that it's maybe more likely that someone will be able to help you? I mean, are they called different things?
They are, yeah. So let's say in the personal training world, physical therapist or doc, obviously that you got to go to school. Right now, all kids graduating now are doctors or physical therapists. So they've been in school for, they've been training for this for about 7 years, right, or 8 years. But you also want to, just like with trainers or doctors, there's different types. So if you have a personal trainer who only treats athletes and they're always at a high level, let's say program, right, or programming, and then you're like in your 60s and you just want to get into shape, they might not have that much experience with working with a 6-year-old. They're going to try to modify things, but they'll throw all sorts of high level things at you because that's all they know. So that's one thing. But when it comes to certifications, the CSCS, what I have, or you have to have a bachelor's, whereas most other ones there's so many out there. You can go to a weekend course and say you're certified, or same thing with CrossFit. Like CrossFit, you go to a weekend and then you become a level 1 coach, and it doesn't mean that you have that knowledge. Just you have to be really careful with interviewing them and find out from them what it is that they like doing, number one, and how they can help you, number two. Not so much the certifications, but there's so many out there. But I would just go with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, which they need a bachelor's. Obviously, I'm biased as both, right? I'm strength and conditioning, but also a physical therapist. But I always tell anybody to go to a physical therapist that understands movement. You can go to a physical therapist that only does like neurological stuff for pediatrics, so they're not going to be the best one. So go to somebody that has a background in training, or has done athletics before, or has done some form of fitness, in order to help you with your fitness goals. But also find a physical therapist that understands movement. We are the movement experts, so I always say go see a PT first, so that way they can then help guide you with where to go. Because to me, a lot of people trust their doctors or their trainers or massage therapists, and there's some that know a lot, but when it comes to the training, I'll say that it's like going to your general practitioner for brain surgery. Makes sense? But people don't think of that when it comes to fitness or movement. We're all put in the same umbrella. Makes sense? But really, know what your goals are as far as fitness, and then try to seek somebody out that's going to listen to you, not try to sell you something. If they're doing more of the talking, then that means they're not listening to you, and therefore they're not going to know what to do for you specifically because they did all the talking. Makes sense? They're coming out. They're coming out. Yeah, they're coming out like, oh, I know everything. I know what to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And maybe you just wanted to learn to square dance. I don't know.
Okay, well, makes sense. Well, Santiago, so what's the best way for people to find out more about your programs and what you do? And if they're local to you, I don't know if you're even taking on clients, but how can people follow up?
Yeah, I'm in the Gainesville area. I'm changing my website because I'm doing a lot of different things, but they can find me on Facebook at Santi.Villamil, or they can find me on Instagram at Santi_the_physio sensei. And that's about it. I mean, really, if anybody has any questions or anything, they can reach out to me on Facebook, whether it's health advice or fitness advice. I'm willing to help them out.
Santiago, that's good. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you.
You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoy the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.